This Cincinnati's like a home for me. I can always come back here.
I try to come out with something different every game, every time I come out so people get something new.
But he's right there talent-wise. The only thing he can do is get better.
In the early 2000s, no college program dripped with more raw talent and edge than Cincinnati. Bob Huggins built a team around fearless wings, explosive guards, and NBA-sized dreams. And for a moment, it looked like three of his most gifted recruits were going to redefine what it meant to leave college league ready. Demarr Johnson, a 6'9" phenom with Tracy McGrady comparisons before he turned 20. James White, one of the greatest dunkers the game has ever seen. And Lance Stephenson, New York's high school king with the swagger and skill to match. They had the body, the bounce, and the buzz. Each of them was supposed to change the game. But that didn't exactly happen, and for three different reasons, they unfortunately never even came close. This is the story of Cincinnati's most promising names and what happened to them changing the game. Let's talk about it. Salute to Ping23US on IG for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. He was a highlight reel waiting to happen. James White wasn't just another athletic guard, he was the measuring stick for bounce. At 6'7", he had a 40-inch vertical, a beautiful glide in transition, and dunk contest footage that felt more like video game cutscenes. If athleticism alone made NBA stars, James White would have been an all-NBA first-teamer. He began his college career at Florida, but transferred to Cincinnati in 2003 after just one season. Under Bob Huggins, he became a key piece of the Bearcats' perimeter attack. And though his stats didn't leap off the page, 16.3 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists per game as a senior, scouts were hypnotized by what he could become. In workouts, he looked unstoppable. Long, fast, explosive, the kind of prototype wing every team thought they needed. But when the 2006 NBA draft came, he slipped to the second round, taken 31st overall by the Portland Trail Blazers, and immediately traded to Indiana. He barely played. The league saw the bounce but questioned his polish, his ball handling was shaky, his jumper was inconsistent, and in an NBA trending towards spacing and shot creation, White didn't do either well enough. He played just 6 games as a rookie. The Spurs gave him a shot in 2007, then the Rockets, then Turkey, Italy, Russia, the D-League, and back again. By the time the New York Knicks signed him in 2012, he was nearly 30. He started 16 games that season, his most ever, but it was short-lived. By 2013, he was out the league again. James White never fit in the space many wanted him to because teams saw him as a dunker, not a player. And the sad part, he could do more. He played defense, he hustled, he fit into systems, just never got a system to fit him. White returned to the spotlight years later in the Big Three, where his consistency and leadership stood out. But by then, the NBA had moved on. James White had the tools, to say the least, he just never had the trust. And trust is one thing that bounce can't buy. Demarr Johnson simply was supposed to be next. A 6'9" wing with guard skills, a smooth jumper, and natural versatility, Johnson came out of Washington, D.C. as one of the most heavily hyped high school prospects of the late 90s. A McDonald's All-American, ranked in the top 3 of his class alongside names like Eddie Griffin and Darius Miles, he had NBA executives eyeing him before he played a single college game. He chose Cincinnati for one reason: Bob Huggins. Huggins promised toughness, exposure, and the freedom to play his game. And in his freshman season, 99-2000, Johnson didn't disappoint. He averaged 13 points, 3.7 rebounds on a team ranked number 1 in the country for much of the year. Playing alongside Kenyon Martin, Johnson's athleticism and range made him a mismatch nightmare. The comparisons to Tracy McGrady weren't just lazy, they were accurate. Long, skilled, unbothered by defenders, Demarr looked like a future NBA star in the making. After just 1 year, he declared for the 2000 NBA draft and was selected 6th overall by the Atlanta Hawks, ahead of names like Jamal Crawford, Hedo Turkoglu, and Michael Redd. He played 78 games his rookie season, starting 30 of them and showing flashes of the offensive weapon scouts envisioned. In year 2, he upped his averages, starting nearly half the season, and had moments where it looked like everything was clicking. Then it all stopped. On September 13, 2002, Demarr was riding in a friend's Mercedes when it crashed into a tree. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt and was thrown from the car, where he fractured 4 vertebrae in his neck. Doctors said he was lucky to be alive, lucky not to be paralyzed. Basketball was the last thing on anyone's mind, but Demarr didn't give up. After nearly 2 years of rehab, he returned to the NBA in 2004, playing for the Knicks, then Denver, then San Antonio. He stayed around until 2008, mostly as a role player off the bench. But the version of him that was supposed to change the game, he never got the chance to exist. Demarr Johnson didn't fail. His chance was stolen. His story isn't about wasted talent. It's about how fast dreams can be ripped away. He was supposed to change the game, and we never got to see if he could. Before the memes and before the sideline antics, Lance Stephenson was a myth. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, he was bred for greatness from the moment he picked up a ball. By middle school, he was already playing against high schoolers. By high school, he was playing on national TV. By graduation, he'd become the all-time leading scorer in New York State school history, passing names like Kenny Anderson, Sebastian Telfair, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They called him Born Ready, and he believed it. He chose Cincinnati in 2009, a surprise pick for a kid with that much media heat. The Bearcats weren't a blue blood, but they gave Lance something more valuable, the green light. As a freshman, he led the team in scoring 12.3 points per game, adding 5.4 rebounds and 2.5 assists. He was named Big East Rookie of the Year, and the league was watching. His game, unpredictable, a blend of street ball creativity, brute strength, and just enough polish to make scouts take notice. He could bully smaller guards, hit off the dribble threes, and make passes that showed real vision, but he was also erratic. He played with a chip on both shoulders and sometimes the whole bag. He declared for the 2010 NBA draft and fell to the second round 40th overall pick by the Indiana Pacers. Why? Concerns about maturity, attitude, and off-court distractions. There was an incident in high school, another in college. Still, the NBA was intrigued, but cautious. At first, he barely played, but by 2013-14, Lance exploded. 13.8 points, 7.2 rebounds, 4.6 assists per game, and 5 triple-doubles, the most in the league that season. He became a key piece in Indiana's deep playoff runs. And in 2014, he went head-to-head with LeBron James in the Eastern Conference Finals. That was his peak. Then, the fall. He turned down a 5-year deal from Indiana and signed with Charlotte for less money and more freedom. It backfired. He bounced around Clippers, Grizzlies, Pelicans, Timberwolves, Lakers. Always the same pattern. A few good moments, a few too many distractions, and another release. By the time he returned to Indiana in 2017, the magic was gone. The league had moved on. Lance Stephenson had everything: size, strength, star power, but he couldn't get out of his own way long enough to keep it. He almost changed the game, but almost doesn't last long in the NBA. All in all, Demarr Johnson should have been a star. James White should have been more than just a dunk contest myth. And Lance Stephenson came the closest, but even he fell short of what he was built to be. Today, Demarr Johnson is back at Cincinnati, serving as Director of Player Development, trying to guide young talent through a path he once blazed and lost. James White turned his post-NBA years into a second act in the Big Three, where his maturity and leadership shine more than his hops ever did. Lance, still grinding, still playing overseas, still hoping one more phone call gives him one more shot. 3 different talents, but the same truth. None of them changed the game like they were supposed to. They had the size, the skill, the story, and yet their legacies live in fragments, highlights, mixtapes, and glimpses of greatness. Cincinnati had a moment to launch 3 stars into NBA history. Instead, it launched 3 lessons in how fragile potential really is. This was episode 4 of Supposed to Change the Game, a series about players who were once handed the keys to the future and somehow ended up left outside the door. Demarr Johnson, James White, and Lance Stephenson, 3 Bearcats who had the build, the buzz, and the blessings of scouts who swore they were different. But they didn't change the game, not because they didn't want it, but because wanting it was never enough. Sometimes it's politics, sometimes it's you. Whatever the reason, the story doesn't always match the talent. Drop a comment, which Bearcat were you most sold on? Who else deserves a spot in this series? And if you're new, hit subscribe, where we tell the stories that almost got erased. The game may forget you, but we don't. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.